Chapter 7: Stepping into a New Reality. The Advanced Combat Training Yard existed in a different reality from the initiate grounds. I felt the difference the moment I stepped through the gates. The air hummed with residual energy, layers upon layers of magic soaked into the earth from countless battles fought here. Reality anchor fields overlapped so densely that I could see them with my naked eyes. Silver and rainbow light woven into patterns that made my teeth ache and my ink-touched skin prickle. The ground was scarred, not just marked, but scarred. Deep gouges where cleaving magic had carved through stone. Blackened patches where chaos had corrupted and been purged. Crystallized sections that glittered in the morning light. Remnants of failed spells or fallen students. This was where serious magic happened. Where power was tested, not coddled. 20 students trained here already, warming up before the session began. I counted them automatically. 5 male cleavers channeling through various weapons. 15 female binders weaving practice patterns in the air. All of them were months or years ahead of me in experience. I could see it in how they moved, how they channeled without visible effort, how their magic flowed like breathing instead of the desperate struggle I still fought through every casting. They noticed me immediately. The conversation didn't stop, but it changed. Voices dropped. Eyes tracked my movement across the yard. I felt their assessment like physical weight. The legacy binders were the worst. Seraphina's cadre clustered near the center of the yard, holding the best practice space through sheer presence. They examined me with expressions that ranged from curiosity to open contempt. I recognized some of them from the common room encounters. Lyanna Greystone stood tallest, her build more suited to a blacksmith than a binder. Arms thick with muscle, posture aggressive, eyes cold and calculating. She was moving before I registered the intent. Her shoulder hit mine hard enough to send me stumbling sideways. I caught myself against a practice post, the impact jarring through my bones.
"Sorry,"
Lyanna said, her voice carrying across the yard.
"Didn't see you there. You're so small."
She smiled. Several of the other legacy binders laughed. I straightened, biting back the response that wanted to come out. Starting a confrontation on my first day would prove every prejudice they held. I was nobody from nowhere, and fighting would just confirm I didn't belong here. "It's fine," I said. The words tasted like ash.
"Oh, it talks?"
Lyanna turned to her friends.
"I thought maybe the trauma left her mute. That would explain the promotion, wouldn't it? Pity advancement."
More laughter. I forced myself to keep walking, to find an empty section of the yard and begin my own warm-up exercises. My hands shook as I wove basic patterns, but I couldn't tell if it was from anger or fear or both. Then the yard went silent. The change was instant and absolute. Conversations died mid-word. Students straightened from their practice stances. Even Lyanna stopped smirking and turned toward the entrance. Dane Ashforge had arrived. He moved through the space like violence waiting to happen. Not rushed, not aggressive, just utterly certain in a way that made everything around him feel tentative by comparison. He carried the greatsword culmination across his shoulders, the blade easily 6 feet long. The metal dark and marked with silver traceries that pulsed faintly with contained power. The sword should have been too heavy to carry so casually. But Dane moved with it like it weighed nothing, like the legendary heirloom weapon was just an extension of his body. He was tall, broad-shouldered, built like someone who had spent years channeling cleaving magic through his muscles and bones. His dark hair was shot through with silver streaks, more than someone his age should have. The ash buildup was visible even from across the yard, but it was his eyes that stopped my breath. They had a faint, crystalline quality that shouldn't exist in living flesh. The edges of his irises glittered like fractured glass, catching light in ways that normal eyes didn't. Beautiful and unnerving and wrong. He was crystallizing, slowly, deliberately, burning himself out with ash accumulation that would eventually freeze him into perfect, terrible stillness. And he knew it, accepted it, maybe even welcomed it based on the rumors I had heard whispered in the dormitories. Dane planted his sword in the center of the yard, the blade sinking into stone like it was soft earth. The impact sent ripples through the reality anchor fields, making the air shimmer.
Advanced convergence combat.
He said. His voice carried without shouting, absolute authority in every syllable.
Convergence magic is what separates functional dyads from corpses.
He walked along the line of students, his crystalline eyes passing over each of us with cold assessment.
You can have all the raw power in the world. Doesn't matter. If you can't synchronize with your partner, you'll die separately instead of fighting together.
He stopped in front of a pair who had been laughing moments ago.
The masters don't care about your individual strength. They care that you're divided, easier to kill.
The male cleaver straightened under Dane's attention, his confidence visibly faltering.
Convergence requires trust,
Dane continued.
timing, understanding your partner's capabilities and limitations. You need to become one weapon, not two people fighting side by side.
He gestured, and a female binder stepped forward. She was beautiful, confident, her uniform tailored perfectly despite being regulation gray. Dark hair, sharp features, the kind of presence that commanded attention.
Rare
Dane said.
demonstration.
Not Seraphina, I noted. Even queens had rivals. Rhea moved to stand beside Dane, falling into position with practiced ease. This was one of his rotation partners then. Someone who had trained with him before, who knew his patterns.
Severing storm.
Dane announced.
Basic area denial. Useful for clearing hordes or establishing perimeters.
He drew his sword from the ground. Silver light immediately began to gather along the blade's edge, sharp and cold and absolute. Rhea's hands moved in response, weaving threads of rainbow chaos that connected to Dane's channeling and amplified it. The magic built between them, cleaving and binding, merging into something greater than either. I felt the pressure building, reality itself protesting what they were about to do. Then they released it. The air filled with invisible cutting edges. I couldn't see them directly, but I felt them. Thousands of razor-thin lines of severance spreading outward in a sphere, each one capable of cutting through anything they touched. The practice dummies positioned around the yard didn't stand a chance. They didn't just fall apart. They ceased to exist. One moment, wooden constructs reinforced with protective wards. The next, component atoms scattered across the yard. The dummies unraveled at the most fundamental level. The spell lasted 5 seconds. When it dissipated, the demonstration area was perfectly empty. The ground carved into geometric patterns where the cutting edges had passed through. Rhea stepped back, breathing harder but controlled. Dane lowered his sword, barely winded.
That's what proper synchronization looks like, he said. You'll spend the next 6 months learning to achieve it. Most of you will fail. Some of you will die trying. Any questions?
No one spoke. What question could possibly matter after watching reality itself tear apart?
Pairing assignments.
Dane continued, pulling out a crystal tablet.
You'll work with designated partners for the first month. Learn their rhythms, their limits, their tendencies. After that, we rotate to prevent dependency.
He read names. Legacy binders paired with experienced cleavers. Second years matched with other second years. The pairings seemed carefully calculated for compatible skill levels. Then he reached my name.
Harrow, you're with Aldrich.
A thin boy near the back raised his hand hesitantly. He looked barely older than me, maybe 17, with sandy hair and nervous eyes. His uniform was marked with a single silver bar indicating a second-year cleaver, but he carried his practice sword like it might bite him. This was my partner, the person I was supposed to synchronize with, trust with my life, learn convergence magic through. He looked like he would apologize if I spoke to him too harshly. Around the yard, I saw the calculation in other students' eyes. The weakest cleaver paired with the newest binder. Whether that was mercy or cruelty depended on perspective. Aldrich approached slowly, not meeting my eyes.
I'm sorry.
He said immediately.
I know I'm not. My channeling isn't very. I'll try not to hold you back too much. It's fine, I said. The words were automatic, meaningless.
Let's just focus on the exercise. Dane had moved to the center of the yard.
Today's objective, basic binding collapse. You'll create a network connecting multiple targets. The binder establishes links. The cleaver severs the nexus point. Damage propagates through all connections simultaneously.
He demonstrated with Sarah again, though at reduced power. Rainbow threads connected 6 practice dummies in a web of chaos. Dane cut through the center point with surgical precision. All 6 dummies collapsed simultaneously, the severance traveling through Sarah's binding network instantaneously.
Begin.
Dane commanded. The yard erupted into coordinated chaos as pairs moved to their designated practice areas. I led Aldrich to the section assigned to us, trying to project confidence I didn't feel. Okay, I said. Have you done binding collapse before?
A few times.
Aldrich's voice was barely audible.
I'm not very good at it. The cutting needs to be precise, and I usually miss the nexus point, or my blade doesn't channel enough power, or...
It's fine. I cut off his spiral before it could fully form. Let's start simple. I'll connect 3 targets. You focus on finding the center point and cutting through it cleanly. Don't worry about power, just accuracy. He nodded, gripping his practice sword with white knuckles. I reached out with my binding magic, letting the ink flow from my fingers in controlled streams. 3 practice dummies stood within easy range. I wove threads between them, rainbow light creating a triangle of connections, then concentrated the links at a single point in the center. There, I said. Cut through that nexus. Aldrich raised his sword. Silver light flickered weakly along the blade's edge. He swung at the nexus point, the strike tentative and uncertain. The cleaving magic barely scratched it. 1 dummy wobbled. The other 2 remained completely unaffected. My binding network held intact. The nexus point damaged, but not severed. Sorry, Aldrich whispered.
I'll try again.
He swung 3 more times. Each strike was marginally better, but still insufficient. The binding network frayed from the repeated attempts, chaos threads unraveling before he could complete the severance. Around us, other pairs were succeeding. I heard the distinctive sound of convergence spells completing, the sharp crack of magic achieving synchronization. Practice dummies collapsed in coordinated groups of 5, 10, 15. I'm sorry, Aldrich said again.
I'm just not strong enough. Maybe if you reduced the binding integrity, made it easier to cut.
No, my mind was already racing through alternatives. The spell requires structural integrity, or the damage won't propagate. If I weaken the threads, even a clean cut won't transmit properly. But I could strengthen his strikes, channel my binding magic through him instead of just around the targets, amplify his weak cleaving so it could cut through properly. The technique felt instinctive, like something my magic knew how to do, even if I had never done it before. The same way I had trapped the mutated horse in black amber without thinking. Pure chaos responding to desperate need. Try again, I said. I'm going to boost your channeling. I wove threads that connected to Aldrich instead of the targets. Rainbow light wrapping around him and his sword. The magic flowed through him, amplifying the weak silver glow into something more substantial. Now, I commanded. He swung. This time, the cleaving magic cut through the nexus point cleanly. The 3 practice dummies collapsed simultaneously as damage propagated through my binding network.
We did it!
Aldrich's face lit up with surprised joy. Again, I said. 6 targets this time. I established a more complex network while simultaneously maintaining the amplification on Aldrich. The dual casting stretched my concentration, ink burning through my reserves faster than normal. But I could manage it. I had always been good at doing multiple jobs simultaneously. Aldrich cut through the nexus. 6 dummies fell.
Excellent.
He was smiling now, confidence growing.
Should we try more?
I was already weaving the next network. 9 targets. The binding threads strained under the complexity, and I had to channel even more power into Aldrich to ensure his strikes were strong enough. The ink was accumulating rapidly. I felt it building, black marks spreading further up my arms. But we were succeeding. That was what mattered. Around us, other pairs executed their convergent spells. I caught glimpses of Seraphina and her partner destroying 20 targets simultaneously, their binding network so elegant it looked like art. She looked directly at me afterward, her smile sharp enough to cut. Message received. You're still beneath me. 15 targets, I said to Aldrich. We can do 15.
Are you sure that's a lot of network complexity?
I can handle it. I wove threads connecting 15 practice dummies in an intricate web. Rainbow light crisscrossing the practice area in geometric patterns. The amplification on Aldrich needed to be even stronger to cut through such a concentrated nexus point. I channeled everything I had. The binding network stabilized. Aldrich swung. The cut was clean. All 15 dummies collapsed in perfect synchronization. But I was breathing hard, hands shaking from ink expenditure. That was too much for a basic exercise. I knew it even as I did it. Aldrich was grinning.
That was amazing. Did you see how many we got?
I nodded, trying to steady my breathing. Around the yard, other pairs were finishing their exercises. Most had managed 10 to 12 targets. Seraphina's 20 remained the highest count. Our 15 should have felt like triumph. Instead, it felt hollow. Dane had been watching the entire time. I felt his attention like physical weight, those crystalline eyes tracking every movement, every spell, every interaction between Aldrich and me. He didn't say anything, didn't correct our technique or praise our numbers, just watched with that unreadable expression that gave away nothing. Somehow, his silence felt worse than criticism. The training session ended an hour later. Students filed out, discussing their performances, comparing counts, establishing informal hierarchies through whispered conversations. I moved to follow them, Then Dane's voice stopped me cold.
Harrow, stay.
The room emptied quickly. No one wanted to be present for whatever judgment was coming. Even Aldrich fled with a whispered apology, leaving me alone with Dane Ashforge and the residual energy of spent magic. I stood before him, exhausted and frustrated and waiting for the words I knew would come. He would tell me I was too weak, too inexperienced, that advanced combat training was a mistake. Instead, he asked,
Why did you compensate for your partner's weakness instead of working within his limitations?
I blinked, surprised by the question. Because the spell required more power than he could provide?
The spell
Dane said quietly.
required synchronization, not power.
He moved closer, not threatening but intense. His crystalline eyes caught the light, fracturing it into patterns that hurt to look at directly.
You could have created a smaller binding collapse within Aldrich's natural capabilities. 3 targets, 5 at most. Built his confidence. Let him succeed on his own terms.
Dane's voice was clinical, dissecting my technique like he was examining a failed spell.
Instead, you tried to do both roles yourself. Established the network and powered his strikes. That's not partnership, that's martyrdom.
The word hit harder than I expected.
And martyrs die fast.
Dane finished. He dismissed me with a gesture before I could respond. I walked toward the exit, his words following like ghosts. Not partnership, martyrdom. I had approached Aldrich the same way I approached everything. By being competent enough to cover everyone else's inadequacies. By making myself indispensable through excellence. By never asking for help or admitting limitation. It had worked in the caravan. Father's business had thrived because I compensated for his weaknesses, managed the details he couldn't be bothered with, made everything function smoothly despite his flaws. But this wasn't the caravan. And convergence magic wasn't logistics. I retreated to my quarters in a daze, Dane's quiet judgment echoing in my mind. That night, I couldn't sleep despite exhaustion. I lit a candle and pulled out my magical theory texts, searching for something that would explain what Dane meant. The answer had to be there, buried in the technical descriptions I had memorized but not truly understood. I found it in a chapter on convergence fundamentals, a passage I had read before but dismissed as obvious. Successful partnership requires both parties to contribute according to their capabilities rather than compensating for perceived inadequacies. The instinct to fix a weaker partner often leads to magical imbalance and catastrophic feedback. In combat situations, such imbalances result in one partner burning out while the other remains underutilized, leaving the dyad vulnerable to coordinated attacks. I read it 3 times, the implications sinking deeper with each pass. I had been approaching partnership wrong from the beginning, treating it like another problem to solve through competence, another situation where being perfect enough would make everything work. But convergence magic required actual connection, real partnership. 2 people contributing what they could instead of one person compensating for both. The idea terrified me more than fighting monsters. I had spent my entire life being the competent one, the responsible one, the person who made everything work because if I didn't, who would? Asking for help felt like admitting failure. Accepting someone else's limitations felt like accepting defeat. And yet Dane was right. In combat, trying to do everything myself would get me killed, would get my partner killed, would make us both useless when we should have been functional. I pulled out my journal and began to write, the words spilling faster than my hand could move. First day of advanced training. paired with Aldrich, a weak cleaver who apologizes for existing. I compensated for his limitations by doing both our jobs simultaneously. We succeeded numerically, failed fundamentally. Dane called it martyrdom. The word cuts because it's true. I've been playing martyr my entire life, suffering through father's incompetence, managing the caravan because no one else could, making myself necessary through perfect competence. It worked in that world. In this world, it will kill me. Convergence requires trust, vulnerability, actually relying on someone else instead of just carrying them. The concept feels foreign, dangerous, like giving up control means accepting chaos. Maybe that's the point. I'm a binder. Chaos is what I channel. Perhaps fighting it in partnership is as futile as fighting it in magic. Dane's eyes haunt me, crystalline and cold and seeing something in me I can't identify. Weakness or potential. Maybe both. I need to prove myself, need to show I can learn, can adapt, can be more than just competent martyrdom. I just have to figure out what I'm trying to prove first. I closed the journal and blew out the candle. Darkness pressed in, but sleep wouldn't come. Dane's quiet judgment echoed in my mind. The way he had watched me try to carry Aldrich through the exercise, seen exactly what I was doing and why, and called it what it was. Martyrdom. Not heroic, not admirable, just a different kind of weakness dressed up as strength. I stared at the stone ceiling of my narrow room and wondered if I could actually learn to be vulnerable, to trust, to partner instead of compensate. The alternative was death. I understood that intellectually, but understanding and believing were different things. And some part of me still insisted that if I was just competent enough, perfect enough, excellent enough, I could survive this alone, even though Dane had just proven I was wrong.